get here? It's been a long haul, hasn't it? You know, as a member of Rotary, today you got to admit, we even tried to kill it. I tried to kill it 5 years ago. But we always had a majority in there that wanted to see this happen for the kids in our town. Council tried to kill it 2 years ago, 2008. We had a couple council members want to make a motion to let's leave this alone. We've been messing along. And it's been my lot through this time to sit there and defend this thing against the people who wanted to get rid of it. So it was great excitement that we're here today. I'm David Fluicher. I'm the mayor of Kelso. For a year in 0405, I was president of Kelso Rotary. So I've been involved with this project for quite some time. In 2001, we had a presentation from some folks in the city, and we thought we'd like to do something with this park. Rotary put in some of these features you see up at the top. We kind of adopted this park, and we thought, well, maybe a tennis court would go well here. That was in the city's master plan. We started noticing that there really weren't that many people playing tennis anymore. But there was a whole lot of folks and didn't really have a great place to go in this town. So we thought we'll put $45,000 towards what was then supposed to be a $90,000 project. So we were going to do half of the project. I think it was probably a little bit of a light estimate even back then. But over the last 8 years, it's turned into a little bit more expensive project, and so we've needed some more help for there. The students at Butler Acres sent the city council petition back in and said, we'd like to have that park in our area. The Parks Board approved that concept in 2003 in lieu of the tennis courts that were planned. And that's where we just started raising money from then. I'd like to thank the members of the city council back then and now who've helped get this park through the process that it takes, supported it all the way through. Like I said, there's been some that weren't excited about it, but it's always been a majority of the council that supported this project, including Mr. Slater, who's here today. He's been on the council, I think, almost as long as this park has been worked on, 20 years or so. Mayor Gregory was a big supporter of the park, and the current council, too, are big supporters of what we've got here today. The money for this, like I said, Rotary came up with $45,000. That's a key part. Another anonymous individual who may or may not be a Rotarian made a $10,000 matching contribution. So if we could collect $10,000 from the community, they would kick in $10,000 to match that. A key part of collecting those community contributions were some fundraisers that Jeremy Hooper and Plan Z led, trying to get that, trying to raise that match part. He in the skating community, they did Battle of the Band, all kinds of things that help get those funds up to where we can match that contribution. City matched that, and there's another $40,000. Tony Hawk Foundation thought this was a good project. Their first concern, this was really supposed to be 2 bowls, and they said, hey, let's add some street features in there. So that sparked the redesign to what you see right now. But what really made this happen was the state recreation office. They gave us a $150,000 matching grant towards this project, and that's what made this a reality. Once we had most of the funding lined up, we sent this out for bid, and we got a really surprising bid back. It was more than what we'd budgeted. It was a little tough. I voted to do it anyway, but I was in the minority, and that was good because the guys who wanted to slow down and take another look at it, that saved us $60,000, and that's mostly because Cal from Pacific Tech said, hey, loosen up the strings a little bit on what you're asking, and you'll get somebody who can come in here and build you a quality park, whether they've done 15 before or not. And that's what we did. That saved us $60,000 on this project. So I thank Cal and the guys at Pacific Tech for helping us think that way and for doing a great job here, you see. We ran into some obstacles in this process, like any process does. Siding was an issue. Some of the folks around here may not have been too excited about having this in their neighborhood, but we looked at other alternatives. We looked at the Tam-O-Shanter area. Anything we did there, we'd have had to rip something else out, or there were concerns with the engineering behind it. And even with that, there were 2,000 kids, according to census numbers, that live within a half mile of this park. only about 700 within a mile of the proposed site at Tamo. So all along, this seemed like a great spot that would be very successful because of the proximity to the intended users. There were also some legitimate concerns that came out of this process, but a lot of them, to me, just focused on the nature of skaters. We were told skaters are just pot smokers, and why build anything nice for them? They're just going to trash it. And that's where I got a little uncomfortable. I think it's wrong that we make those kind of generalizations, and especially just based on somebody's hobby of choice. When you say you don't want those kind of people in your neighborhood, you're just not demonstrating the diversity that I think we need to embrace in our community. I can tell you that vandalism, drug problems, and drinking are problems for a lot of demographics, not just for the teenage kids who happen to balance better than me. I think the whole community has a role to play here by trying to provide facilities like this that are appropriate for these kids to have recreational opportunities. If it wasn't for what we had at Tamo Park, you'd probably be hearing the same kind of complaints about baseball players because they're playing next door to our houses and knocking out our windows. But they have a great facility, and now the skaters can too. And our experience with the community, the skating community during the construction process has been nothing but ideal. They've stepped up, and they've taken ownership of this park. They believe it's theirs, and I believe that they're going to treat it with that respect. Guys like Nick Nunez, all right, Nick Nunez, Rod Marks, and Josh Dillinger, Jonathan Wicklander, Derek Bond, Abe Seidel, they were all here helping out with this process. I know Nick came and wanted to help us by making sure that when they poured the concrete, nobody's name was in it the next morning. He'd sit here and stay out here at night and make sure that it was safe and that it was going to be a quality project when it got done. I came down one time and he and Rod were here talking about, all right, this is how you need to tell these guys. They need these angles just right, you know, and showing him how to instruct the concrete guys to get a park that they could skate in. Because, I don't know, maybe some of the concrete guys skate, but I know these guys do, so they want to make sure it was right for them. Anyway, I appreciate what you guys and all the rest of you who pitched in. I think there's not too many folks here who haven't helped in some way. I appreciate what you've done to make this project a reality. So with that, we're going to go ahead and cut this ribbon. And then everybody who's standing here with the board, y'all are going to try to fit on here somehow and have fun with this thing the way it's supposed to be. So I'd like to invite up anybody who was involved in the construction process, funding, anything. Come on up here and you guys can stand around. We're going to cut the ribbon here. Hold that. Especially Jeremy here. Come on up. Don't be shy. Dave. Hey! Come on, guys.
Ribbon cutting ceremony right here.
Thank you.
This might be your first ribbon cutting. It's not. It's too dull.
They're gonna postpone until tomorrow. We need sharper scissors.